Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Everyone, welcome to this presentation on Surah Ibrahim, chapter 14, and we will cover verses 35 to 41. These are the references, and this is our contact in case anyone has a query or a question. Recap so far. Everything in the universe follows Allah's laws, and the darknesses which exist in the human world can be removed by using the light of the Quran. We need, of course, to first recognize and understand these darknesses of the human psyche. Next is what is in the Quranic guidance can be verified through historical evidences. For example, the account of Bani Israel and their struggle with the tyrannical regime of Pharaoh. As we know, Quran does give historical examples just to illustrate its point, and particularly the law of requital. The messengers who brought Allah's revelation were themselves human beings, and together with their companions, they followed the permanent values and managed to reap the benefits as noted in the Quran. And one of those human beings was the messenger of Allah, Ibrahim, and we will throw some light on his traits today. Human desires and intellect which are devoid of the light of the Wahi of Allah are equivalent to Iblis plus Shaitan. These are the two facets of human behavior, and Quran has referred to this at a number of places, and cannot create a world free from fear and huzn. Leaders and nations who follow the evil ideology of life ultimately take their populations towards destruction through their own deeds. This is as per the law of requital of Allah. We have gone over this many times, that nations decline very slowly, at a very slow pace, which may not be visible to us, because they decline over a longer period of time than the lifespan we have in this world. There are enough signs in the outer world and within human psyche which can draw our attention to exploration of the purpose of our existence as a human being. If we do not wish to do so, that is our choice. Whatever we think and do has an impact on ourselves and its development. Those who wish to follow the path of Allah, which leads towards the system of Deen, become His companions, and Allah has declared them to be His servants. And this aspect is covered in detail throughout the Quran. It is our choice whether we wish to become His companions or not. The point over here is to which the Quran invites our attention, that we should be conscious of it, that once we come to the Quran, we have now become His companions, and all the duties which Allah has taken on Himself, then those become our duties. This chapter is named after the messenger Ibrahim, as some details of his self-development aspects are noted here. So this is where Hazrat Ibrahim's traits, his character, is introduced in this chapter. Let us look at the first verse. Ibrahim followed the path of Allah. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ اجْعَلْ هَٰذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا وَاجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامَ. In order to halt and stamp out these interferences and imbalances of rebellious men, Ibrahim laid the foundations of the system of Allah, and for this he established a center. Now, if we look at the pattern of the verses which are coming before this verse, we will see that now the Quran has introduced the character of Ibrahim. And in relation to this, he prayed to Allah to make this habitation, that he created an ambition, he created a desire within himself, which I have declared as the center of your system, such that it becomes a haven of peace for those people who are victims of rebellious and coercive forces. Just see how alive he is to his environment and to his own consciousness, that the system around is not acceptable. It is creating fear in human hearts, and we don't want it. And to bestow on me my offspring who will be defenders of this center, that ability, so that we can stay away from each and every one of those deeds and things, and these are called asnam, which become an obstruction in the path of obedience to your law and may make us indifferent from you. Now, nothing should distract from the path of the Quran. After drawing our attention to all those points, which we have reiterated in the first slide, i.e. covered so far in this chapter, the Quran has now introduced the messenger Ibrahim in this verse. I have already noted this. As the messengers of Allah were also human beings, here the Quran has informed us that Ibrahim understood the finer aspects of Wahi and made it part of his cognitive makeup. Important point over here is that the Wahi should become part of our consciousness, because only then we will see the word the way Quran wants us to see it. He continuously questioned the word and the people living in the world around him, and through his efforts he educated and trained himself in the light of the guidance of Wahi. Next point is Ibrahim was born into a family which was immersed in idol worship, and he emerged from it by questioning every aspect of this life. And when he received the guidance of Wahi, he accepted this guidance alone once he understood its finer details. This is very important. Sometimes we say, I wish my environment was better. I wish I was born in Deen. These messengers, all of them, if we look at their background, these were very difficult background. We have gone through Surah Yusuf and we have seen in what circumstances Yusuf was born. And despite the fact that Hazrat Yaqub had Wahi of Allah, and what was the state of affairs within that family, that his own brothers wanted to get rid of him. Question is not that where we are born. The question we should ask is, what am I going to do with my life and with the guidance which I have now received? He did not let his family, the society around him, and their belief system affect him. And he emerged from it successfully, and the Quran has presented this developed self as a model for the whole of mankind for all times. So we should keep it in mind that struggle is part of our lives. It is through struggle and challenges that our self develops. Even within the system of Deen, we will have challenges. It's not that the system of Deen, everything will be hunky-dory and we will have great life all the time. Because opposing battle forces will always be opposing that system. So we will have to stay alert and prepare for all eventualities, even in that world where if the system of Deen gets established in some piece of land. Having acquired a developed self based on the divine guidance, he now came to this conclusion that there is a need to organize the establishment of the system of Deen. There is a need to establish a tangible structure for those who have accepted this guidance, i.e., who have become mu'mineen. For this, he selected a place, and consultation is assumed here. It was not his decision alone. There must be people around him, though the Quran is now, as a leader, as an imam, is saying that he was the one who made this decision, and then got on to the task with the help of others. And we will come to that later on. People needed peace, which they could never have obtained under the idol worshipping setup. So he came to this conclusion in the light of Wahi, as well as observing, based on evidence, that these people who are around him and who are non-Quranic, or who are not following the Wahi, are not going to create any peace. In fact, they are the ones who create fear. He fully grasps the meaning of La ilaha illallah. Now, over here, I have quoted some paragraphs from the book, Meanings of the Quran, Volume 7, explaining An-Nabud al-Asnam. Now, Sanam is normally translated as idol, but it has far bigger sphere of its meanings than just being called as an idol. Sanam, the plural is Asnam, is commonly translated as idol, but its meaning is wider than this. Imam Raghib writes that every one of those things which makes man indifferent to Allah and turns his attention away towards some other direction is called Sanam. Very important. So if we are, for example, come to the Quran, and if we get distracted at some point, then that means that distraction will become Sanam. Furthermore, he has stated that the supplication which Ibrahim had made, asking Allah to keep me and my progeny protected from this, that we might embrace obedience of Asnam, this meant the pursuit of these kinds of desires, because he could never fear that he and his progeny will start worshipping idols. For example, in today's world, we cannot expect Muslims will be sitting in front of an idol or some kind of a statue and bowing their heads, though we see it in more backward societies still, where people go to the graves and put their heads on the ground. But That is a very crude form of sanam or asnam worship. But the bigger issue is about our hearts, about our inner consciousness. By La ilaha is not only meant the smashing of idols of clay and stones, but is also the discarding of all desires, objectives, vested interests, and inclinations from the abode of Islam, the heart, which become an obstruction to acting on the path of the divine values. So this is where our concentration should be, and to which Hazrat Ibrahim is drawing our attention, or the Quran is drawing our attention. Ibrahim had also made this same supplication for us, because as followers of the millet of Ibrahim, we are also included in his progeny in a manner of speaking. The next verse 1436 explains this further. 1436, the conduct of Ibrahim serves as a human model. Rabbi innahunna azlalna kasiram minan nasi faman tabi'ani fa innahu minni wa man asani fa innaka ghafurur rahim. Oh my Rabb, now this is the supplication made by Hazrat Ibrahim at some point in time during his life, and Quran has quoted it over here. Oh my Rabb, these non-divine forces and allurements have misguided many people. So he recognized that what is misguiding others. And this supplication of mine, which I have made to provide the ability to my progeny to tread on the righteous path, is because if they follow the right path, then they will be deserving of the custody of the center of the system. If they do not tread on this path, then just being my progeny will not make them eligible for this. In this system, the very criterion for ours and others alters. My own will be the one who follows this maslak on which I tread. And maslak means over here the path. It's a complete belief system which will come into it. And it's not only beliefs, but also our character, our behavior, which we display in the outer world. And own over here, what I've done is I have put it under inverted commas, because over here own means that the way I follow Wahi. So this we should keep it in mind, because the Quran says that no human being has the right to ask somebody else to obey them. They have to obey Wahi of Allah. For the one who transgresses against it, then he has nothing to do with me, even if he is from my progeny. Although the arrangements for his protection and nourishment will be according to your physical law, exactly the same way as it is for other people, because your physical law is equal for everyone, kafir and mu'min alike. Important point that we have to look at the world around us, and presently we know that the world is man-devised. And under a man-devised system, all the physical laws are still working. And of course, the law of requital is working as far as the human self is concerned. So we are well aware of functioning of both types of laws. So this should be kept in mind. Ibrahim manifests the developed state of his eminence. Some more comments on this. Just notice the lofty state of his self-development here when Ibrahim declares unambiguously that whoever follows the way I follow Allah's guidance is from me. So he is associating himself to those who are with him following Allah's path. And this is important. And this is important for us as well. That if we have come to this path together, then we become one on one side. And because this is for the system of Deen, and that common objective is the one which helps us to remove our differences. And this is important as it is, we have gone through the verse 103 of Surah Al-Imran. We need to keep this statement in mind as we will refer to it in our future discussions. So this is our second model which Quran has presented. Previously, we have gone through the model of Hazrat Yusuf, and now we are going through this. So we should keep this in mind as we will refer to it when we are going through the explanation of other verses. Then it goes on to say that the decision about the one who does not follow this path of mine is really up to you, as your two attributes will decide their outcome. And over here, the Quran has quoted Ghafurun Rahim and Fainaka, that now left it to the law of Allah. that these are the ones. Ghafur means we know protection and Rahim means nourishment. So protection and nourishment will come according to the law of Mashiach of Allah. Protection as per the law of Mashiach and nourishment of the physical side as per physical laws. While the development of the self will be as per the guidance of Wahi. Just notice the precision and firmness in this statement. Because we have gone through these finer aspects previously as well, that these things become visible if we look at them very closely in a refined way. We go into the micro scale of our deeds, our solid deeds, and the refined aspects of our iman, then we'll be able to notice it not only within ourselves, but in others as well. At the start of the verse, the issue of the majority of the people is stated to be that most conform to wrong systems. Because they conform to the wrong system because they do not question it. They cannot see the wrongs those systems are creating around them. And they follow the path of least resistance because human beings mostly don't want to make an effort by conforming to the wrong system, conforming to majority. And one of the things which comes to people's mind is how can majority go wrong? And we can see in our word that how wrong the majority is. So these are the things. It's not a question of majority going wrong. It is the question of looking at the permanent values of the Quran and then see who is meeting that criteria and who is not meeting that criteria. And by not meeting that criteria, what kind of problems these societies are creating in the world for the fellow human beings. And if we ignore that, then frankly, Quran is not of much help to us. We will read it and we will never understand it. And do not find any attraction in Allah's guidance as it is an uphill task. And Quran has called it an uphill task. It is uphill task not in a physical sense only, but in the cognitive side of human mind. Because human mind has to think very hard and not think hard one day, 2 days, but rest of our life. And we have seen it that as we are going through these verses, how many other finer aspects are coming before us. It's not that man does not wish to make an effort. For an immediate benefit, human beings go out of their way to make exertions. For example, we have seen that just see how much physical exertion athletes undergo for years in order to win a sport medal in the Olympics. I've just given it an example. In the acceptance of Allah's guidance, we only need to bring a change in our outlook, and there is a far less effort over here. But it is an uphill task because we have to go against the non-Quranic desires which are being created in our mind. And that is the most difficult thing because our desires want us to accomplish or pursue those desires when we have the means to be able to pursue those. And despite that, we go against them and stand up for the Wahi of Allah, for the guidance of Allah, and for the system of Deen. The declaration by Ibrahim points to the eminent state of his self-development, where he firmly states to Allah that I have now reached that state of my understanding where those who use me as a model cannot go wrong. I am in a position to explain the message to them and then to help them to work with me. Concept of being together as a Jamaat for the establishment of that system through which humanity will achieve peace and security. If we look at his life from other parts of the Quran, and we will come across that as we progress through explaining various verses of the Quran, that he decided himself. He came from a very rich background. His father had a very high influential position, and despite that, he was the beneficiary of the system, but he rejected those benefits which were giving him a higher status, but making rest of the mankind yatim and miskeen. And that was the point to which Quran is pointing our attention to. 1437, all this struggle for what goal? Establish Salat. And over here, then second, another supplication of Hazrat Ibrahim is Rabbana inni askantu min zurriyat biwadin ghairi zi zar'in in the baytikal muharrami. Rabbana liyuqimus salata faj'al afidatan minan nasi tahwi alayhim warzuqhum minas samarati la'allahum yashkurun. O our Rabb, I have for this supreme objective settled some part of my progeny near your respected house. This has been called your house because by being above all individual associations, it is a common legacy of peace for universal humanity. It is located at such a place where there is not even a sign of any cultivation round about. Because he thought that I should or we should move to a place where we can start anew. We can start our own habitations where everyone is a moment. At least the bases are right, the foundation is right. All this arrangement I have made so that my progeny establishes a system of Salat, i.e., that system in which all people obey your laws. So, O our Rabb, do this despite all those apparently unfavorable circumstances, that the hearts of mankind become inclined towards them. Furthermore, provide the means of sustenance for them from the product of the land, so that by becoming contented and free from economic needs, they work for the attainment of this objective with such dedication and intensity, their efforts are worthy of full fruition. A lot covered in this one verse, where ultimately the aim is to establish the system of Salat. And this is important for us to keep it in mind so that the efforts which we make under the guidance of Wahi, these come to fruition. There's no point in making an effort if those efforts, the results of those efforts do not come out. And these do not benefit everyone under the system of Deen. So these are the things which we should keep it in mind from this verse. And some explanation, the importance of the physical world. For the establishment of the system of Salat, there is a need for a piece of land. Self needs physical body to develop itself. Ibrahim recognized it very clearly and then identified a place to do it. At the time, there were no borders and Allah's land was far and wide, and he selected this place which, though it was uncultivated, had the potential to grow and develop into the center of a system of Deen. It's amazing that how Muslims who followed the Quran initially and established a very effective system of Deen totally forgot, totally ignored, and they go over these verses and never think about it. What is noted over here? By commencing the verse with Rabbana inni askantu, the importance of Rabubiyat is made clear. See, Rabbana, whereas we know that whenever the attribute of Rabb comes, it is pointing towards the system of Rabubiyat. And over here, he says, we, Rabbana, that our Rabb. So it is a collective system in which everyone benefits, because unless the physical needs are met, ourself cannot find a conducive environment in which it can develop. Because if we are all the time worried about our physical needs, then we are not going to put enough effort towards our cognitive side. That the foundation of the system is to meet physical needs first, very important, which includes some land to build a shelter. If there is no land under our feet, then we can't live in the air. Then it is pointed out that in the establishment of any new habitation, there will always be challenges which need to be addressed. Then comes the purpose of starting this new habitation. Your sacred house sums up the purpose where Salat can be established. So one should not confine ourselves to a particular place which can become the sacred house of Allah. The issue over here is that wherever we can start the system freely, with full freedom, and where no human being is a slave of another human being, that should be our outlook. And that is where this is to what Quran is pointing our attention. By noting Faj'al hafedatan minan nas, the meaning of Salat is made clear here, i.e., so that by witnessing this, people develop an urge to come to the guidance of Allah, and the hearts may find appeal in this. And this is important at this stage where we are developing ourselves to become eligible for that system of Deen, should I say. We need to understand that hearts must unite, hearts must come together with all differences removed. Because in the decision making within the system of Deen is always unanimous. It is based on no differences. If there are differences, then we can never establish the system of Deen. The verse is summed up by stating la'allahum yashkurun, so that they manifest the benefits acquired through Salat for the good of all. Because if the benefits cannot be translated into physical acts, into the system of Deen, which is visible, then those are just sound bites. And Quran deals with practical issues. And the system also manifests benefits of their efforts for all. In sharing the produce of the land lies the secret of peace, security, and freedom from fear and misery. Let us go to the next verse. Rabubiyat cannot go unnoticed anywhere in the world. Rabbana innaka ta'lamu ma nukhfi wa ma nulinu wa ma yakhfa 'ala Allahi min shay'in fil ardi wala fis samai. O our Rabb, whatever is in our hearts and whatever we manifest, all is evident to you. And this is not only applicable to us, there is nothing in the highs and lows of the universe that is hidden from you. This is something which we should keep it in mind all the time as the students of the Quran are and the followers of the Quran, that whatever we have in our hearts, Allah is aware of it. And we should also be aware of it, that Allah is aware of it. So this is important. And Rabbana, by saying Rabbana over here, is a Rabubiyat. Our aim, our minds and hearts should concentrate all the time, focus on the aspects of Rabubiyat and think that how Rabubiyat, the system of Rabubiyat, can materialize in our world. And in any case, as and when Deen comes, it will have to emerge, it will have to grow out of the man-device system. So we should think hard all the time and keep it in mind. And this is what it means over here, in my view, that Quran has pointed to this fact that you should be all the time aware that whatever you have in your hearts, which is in line with the Quran, has to be related to Rabubiyat, because that is what the aim is, to solve the problems of humanity, where it stops creating yatim and miskeen. And then out of that, the development of the self will emerge. Because if the physical needs are not met, and if there is no Rabubiyat, then we cannot expect human beings to be attracted towards the Quran and its system. Of course, the initially people who, like us, who have come to the Quran, have to think hard on that. And then Quran says, this is because you also know that the system whose beginning is being established on this small scale through our hands, what its future is going to become. So when Quran says over here now, the first part is by Ibrahim and the second part is from Allah. وَمَا يَخْفَى عَلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Allah makes it clear to us that everything is in our knowledge. So you should never feel lonely. You should never feel alone. So question over here is not of numbers. The question over here is that how much our self is developed on this path, and which is within the reach of every one of us. Life is about continuous learning. This statement points to the state of development of the self of Ibrahim. Having been on this path for some time, he has now reached this conclusion that Rabubiyat, Rabbana, has numerous facets, and knowledge of these falls into human cognition progressively. So these things do not come into our mind in one day. It is years and years we have to work on it. At no stage of our life should we think that this is the end of Rabubiyat, because Rabubiyat is the one which will go beyond death as well. Over here, we have to establish it, and in the hereafter, this will be already existing for us. Here the Quran has pointed to the fact that there will always be more to discover if we keep striving. We will only be limited by our own inner ambition. So we have to create an ambition. Hazrat Ibrahim was not born with that ambition. He created that ambition after observing the wrongs happening all around him. And same we have done. We have looked at the Quran, we have looked at the word, and we said that this word is creating fear and huzn. And we don't want to be part of this fear and huzn. The Quran encourages us to create ambitions within the domain of its guidance and then see how these become accomplished on a continuous basis. Since Allah encompasses knowledge of all that is in the universe, and we have convinced ourselves of this through our own efforts and perception, we need to benefit from this fact. By noting وَمَا يَخْفَى عَلَى اللَّهِ, that nothing is hidden from Allah, our attention is drawn towards all divine attributes associated with Allah, which means that these secrets will keep manifesting before our eye as we progress on the path of Salat al-Mustaqim to accomplish Rabubiyat. Very important, if we see that the word starts with Rabbana, and once Allah comes to his part, he says Allah, which means all his attributes are now inclusive. So that is something which we should keep in mind. And over here I've quoted a verse, Innani hadani rabbi ala siratin mustaqim min deenan qayyiman millata Ibrahima hanifa. Verse 6, 161. We have to recognize that we have been helped by our own efforts through the guidance of the Quran onto Salat al-Mustaqim, and the same path was followed by Ibrahim as well. So we are not the ones who are going to do it for the first time. They are human beings just like us, who were born like us, brought up like us, who also were on this path. We reach a stage where we can firmly state that our Rabb has guided us towards Salat al-Mustaqim. And we know he has guided us, and he's still guiding us, and he will keep guiding us, and he is our model for the rest of our life, whether before death or after death. I established Deen, and this is what Rasulullah did, and Ibrahim also, he did the same. This guidance is based on evidence. The treading on this path manifests this evidence as we keep progressing, and we verify it continuously using the laid down criteria of permanent values of the Quran. There is a lot in this verse which we need to revisit it just to find out the new aspects covered in this verse. Verse 1439, some signs of the acceptance of dua. Alhamdulillah alladhi wahba li alal kibari Ismaila wa Ishaqa inna rabbi la samiyul dua. Now we have seen that over here in Surah Ibrahim, there are a number of supplications of Hazrat Ibrahim covered. And supplications, as we know, are related to our desires, our ambitions, our intense urgings within us that we wish to do it. I'm very hopeful about the future of this because I have seen all this with my own eyes, that despite unfavorable circumstances, with your blessings, all that takes place, which cannot generally have any expectation of. For example, in my old age, when I was not hopeful of any progeny, you bestowed sons on me like Ismail and Ishaq, who are living evidence of your hamd and blessings and all. And then is therefore I have full certainty that my Rabb will definitely grant acceptance to my entreaty. And interesting over here is that again, Rabb has come over here that these children are going to help me in that system of Rabubiyat about which you have guided me, that is Allah, and I need human beings. And of course, if children are brought up in that environment which they know what guidance of Allah is, and they also understand the system of Rabubiyat and its importance in removing the problems of man-made systems, then we can see that there is a lot in this verse and there is a lot in this ambition, and we all have this ambition. So this is something which we should keep it in mind and let our children know all the time that what is the purpose of this life. Don't get just lost in the majority, because those who are lost in the majority and ignore the Wahi of Allah, then they are lost forever. The Quran helps to relate the events in our life to ourselves. The verse starts with Allah and ends with Rabb, i.e. all divine attributes should be taken into account, and here a sign of Rabubiyat is noted, which includes the arrival of children into the world and the mechanism for the acceptance of dua. Understanding the functioning of the laws of Allah is the prerequisite to understanding the functioning of the Rabubiyat of Allah. The first stage of this is to find out the details of these laws and of the fact that everything in the universe follows laws. This process takes time, and during this period, we need to strengthen our Iman and keep doing solid deeds with a view to strengthen our self-development. And it's important that it's a very long path because it is the path of the rest of our life till the time we die. One should not become discouraged, go into despair, and the sign of despair is to us when our full potentials are not yet manifested. So we should try to understand it, and on a small, even small steps, we should keep progressing forward, of course, together. And wherever there are issues within our own self, where the brain tells us puts in some doubts, we need to address them in the light of Allah's Wahi. Ibrahim had figured out the system of Rabubiyat according to the circumstances of his era, and for that he needed the support of his progeny. Here, as per the law of Allah, he is bestowed with two sons, Ismail and Ishaq, whom he brings up using the guidance of Wahi, and both sons grow up as Mu'mineen and help lay the foundation of the system. Because within the family, children see the conduct of their parents, and then parents become a good model for the children if parents are mu'mineen. And if they have the aim of Rabubiyat in front of them, then they all can work together. So a small Jamaat can emerge from a family as well. An important point to note here is that between the birth of sons, their upbringing, and then physically working on the construction of the house of Allah, there is a gap of many years. So imagine this hasn't happened in 1 year or 2 years. If we look at it very closely, when the children are born and by the time they are of any use for the system of Rabubiyat, they have to be adults. So there is a long gap through which Ibrahim had to go, and he was living in a non-Quranic system, in a system which was based on human exploitation. And it must be hard for him, but he never ever gave up. He stood very firm on that. And these are the things, and the same comes out of Hazrat Yusuf's life as well. When we saw that from the time he left his house and the time he got established, and by the time his brothers came and they were confronted with that, there were many decades through which he had to remain firm-footed and steadfast. For example, we had seen in the case of Yusuf that there was a period of many years between the time he got onto this path and the manifestation of his tangible results. There is a great lesson over here for us who are on the platform of TOLU-E-ISLAM. Never ever to think that we are doing nothing. We are doing a great job. At least we are at this stage strengthening ourselves for the system of Deen. Here there is a great instruction for us in how the system of Deen initially takes shape gradually in our minds. Allah does not need people who give up very quickly. We should keep it at the back of our mind all the time. And where will we go? Can we leave this planet and go somewhere else? Can we leave the universe and go somewhere else? And those are the kind of questions we should ask ourselves. Becomes a dua, and then gradually through persistent and consistent efforts spread over many years, it gains strength. Ibrahim never thought of giving up, and see how he witnessed his strivings on this path are going to come to fruition as he had iman that Allah kadhalika najzil muhsinin, and Allah never lets the reward and the results and the outcomes of good deeds which are done after iman go against it. This is how Allah rewards those who do deeds which create balance in the world, already covered under Surah Yusuf. Now let us look at the two verses which conclude this presentation, 40-41, supplication for the system of Salat. Rabbi jalni muqim as-salati wa min zurriyati rabbana wa taqabbal dua. Rabbana ighfirli wa li walidayya wa lil mu'minina yawma yaqumul hisab. O my Rabb, make me and my progeny capable for this so that the system of Salat is established through our hands. O our Rabb, fulfill this wish of mine. So previously, he says that, oh Allah, you listen to our dua. And now he says that this is how it is going to be accepted through the system of Salat. See the Rabubiyat leading to the system of Salat. And who will do it? All those with me. Of course, progeny comes within that. And then it says, O our Rabb, furthermore, this is also my petition that if some minor errors are committed from me, of course, we need protection as well because human beings do make mistakes. And of course, some mistakes are made because of the opposition around us. My parents and other mu'mineen, that we remain protected from the ill effects on the day that results manifest themselves. And let us look at some of these points in more detail. Supplications represent our desires. We have gone through a presentation on dua. If anyone wants to revisit it, there are a number of points covered over there. We need to keep this pattern of Ibrahim before us. Two supplications by Ibrahim are quoted here by the Quran. These should be considered in relation to the establishment of Salat, as the first verse commences by stating, Rabbi jalni muqim as-salat. So, see how strong desire he had. And this is a great example for us as well, that day and night we should think of that we have to have the system of Salat, which can alleviate all the problems which we are facing in a man-device system. Rabubiyat through the establishment of Salat is my desire here. That's it. And for this, I need the help of mu'mineen. It is not a task for one person, and you know it. And this is what comes out of this particular verse. My dua to you is that in order to keep it a reality now, I need all other means to progress further on this path of the system of Salat. For this, of course, the initial phase is to have three things. Firstly, the strong iman that this all is within human reach. Because if we think that this is not achievable, or we look at the world around us and what we see over there, the majority is not even interested in that, and they are conforming to the values of an unjust system, then of course we as human beings, one feels discouraged that how is this going to happen? And for that, best is to look beyond this earth and look at the universe and look at all the signs which the Quran has, to which the Quran has drawn our attention, and see that Allah, who has created all this, if He is on our side, then it will fall in place. Our job is to do the first part. And the first part is to have iman and then do solid deeds to strengthen ourselves. And secondly, to understand what means are required to fulfill it. And there is a long lead time involved to learn these things and educate ourselves. Thirdly, to be aware of all the risks on this path for which I will need protection from your side. And that is where the Quran says that maghfirat will come. And we know meanings of maghfirat is protection, means of protection, includes knowledge and its practical application. During these efforts, we need protection for those who are with us so that this task can be reached its level of fruition, i.e. the era where the results are tangibly visible to all. And next is the mention of Yawma Yukum al-Hisab, the period of the establishment of the human accountability. And this is not, we shouldn't leave it to the hereafter, because in the hereafter, in any case, this is going to take place, because there will be no physical self, and our self, in whatever form it has developed, will be over there. Issue over here is that the day all these results, which we are, the efforts of our results, which we are making over here after acquiring Iman and coming together, these should manifest in this life. And that is why, because this is what is being discussed here by Ibrahim. And this is what to which the Quran is drawing our attention. The era where detailed and precise accountability is functioning in all spheres of life, it could be here as part of the system of Deen. It will in any case occur in the life of the hereafter, where the system of Deen already exists as a fact. So this is, we should keep it in mind that under the system of Deen, we want accountability. And that accountability which we want under the system of Deen, we have already subjected our own self to that. That is the physical self as well as our inner self. What is the physical self? We have changed our diet, we have changed our exercise, we are trying to keep a healthy self so that we can live as long as possible for the system of Deen. And when it comes to our inner self, we are looking at the law of requital all the time, that nothing gets into our head which contaminates the model of Allah with all His attributes. So these are the kind of things we should keep it in mind, because we are preparing ourselves, just like Ibrahim, for that system of Deen where he benefited and then established it wherever. We will come to those aspects later on. As per the law of requital, human accountability is part of our decision-making process and is within the way in which our self functions. Being aware of it and then subjecting ourselves to it. And this aspect will be covered in our last segment next Sunday. Each choice and intent leaves its imprint on us. The bottom line is that each and every deed of ours materializes the moment we commit it in our life in this world. Once the defined time of respite comes to an end, these manifest before our eyes and consciousness. Finally, few verses on the eminent self of Ibrahim. First one is Qala lahu rabbuhu aslim. Qala aslamtu li rabbil alameen. Beautiful verse, sums up everything. This was the maslak of Ibrahim. That was the complete aim of Ibrahim, complete objective. He had become a model of this, i.e. the maslak of that Ibrahim who, when his Rabb said to him, bow down before our laws, saying yes to this invitation, he bowed down completely in front of these laws, in front of those laws according to which the whole universe is getting Rabubiyat. Now, what is in it for us? Allah, we came to the Quran voluntarily, and we are still on this path voluntarily. So we can say Allah has asked us, Qala lahu rabbuhu aslim, and we in turn said Aslamtu li Rabbil Alameen. Just see the wording, Rabbil Alameen. And by virtue of that, we have now become aware of the issues which are facing the world. And this is what Rabubiyat means. Over here, twice Rab has appeared. First is that he was asked to come to the system of Rabubiyat completely, totally, his cognition totally committed to that, focused on that, Allah being his model with all his attributes, nothing else, nothing contaminating his consciousness. And then Kala Aslamtu li Rabbil Alameen, in front of those laws according to which the whole universe is getting Rabubiyat, and he accepts it. He accepts the call, and then see how his supplications then are going to become answered. Next is Inni wajatu wajhila lillazi fatara samawati wal arda hanifan wa ma ana minal mushrikeen. And he came to this conclusion now where he had enough courage to stand up and say, I am facing towards him, to his laws, to his system, who has created everything from nothing. Fatara samawati wal ard hanifan, and I am fully focused on that. I consider the focus of all my attentions, that sole being who brought this whole universe into existence from nothing, and whose law is functioning here in such a way that neither the stars nor the moon and the sun can dare to go against it. Hence, I cannot associate anyone else in his sovereignty. This is an absolute verdict of mine. Wama ana min al mushrikeen. We also have to, at some point in time, we have to fully become cognizant of it, that our mind, our consciousness is not contaminated. It is not doing any shirk. It is fully focused on Allah as a model with all his attributes. And we understand that in this message, that is the pure Quran, we do not associate, we do not include anything in its recipe, in its formula. And we have gone over these points many times, and we will be going over it as we progress through the Quran. Next is Inna Ibrahim kana ummatan qanitan lillahi hanifan wa lam yakun min al-mushrikeen. And see, progressively now he has reached a stage where Allah declares that though Ibrahim was apparently one individual human being, due to his comprehensive personality, he was an entire ummah which is bowed in front of the laws of Allah, and after turning away from every non-Allah power, keeps all his attentions focused on this very supreme goal. So he became an ummah in himself. And this is for us as well, that each one of us, we have a self exactly the way Ibrahim had. And we are human beings just like him. Our circumstances may be different, but as a human being, we can develop into an ummah, complete ummah. And it is within our reach. And the whole purpose of these presentations is mutually to become one. Walam yakum min al mushrikeen, because that is how the system of Deen will come. Whoever is aiming, whoever is coming together with a view to become eligible for the system of Deen, we must keep this in mind. And we don't acquire this kind of a self in one day. It has to be done over a period of time, slow, steady, firm-footed. And that is how we progress in life. And Quran doesn't expect us to change overnight. We have to take time, but remain focused, because Allah does not leave mu'minin alone. There are a number of important points over here from the life of Ibrahim, which the Quran has noted in this chapter. And thanks for your time and for sharing this presentation.